You'll probably notice in the newer version of Lightroom Mobile, the editing experience has changed quite a bit. It looks a lot different. So if you look, here's the new version on the left-hand side. I took a screen capture of the old version. The way it worked is you had this strip at the bottom that you would go and slide back and forth and choose what you wanted to adjust. And then you got this weird little thing. I actually didn't care for it. I always end up dragging it the wrong way. What you're going to see in the new version, I'll give you a quick peek here under the light section, is we have sliders back. So we're back to sliders, which is really the way Lightroom on the desktop works, so I'm pretty happy about that. And as for new features, the features are pretty much the same as the old version. So it's not like you have new sliders or anything like that. It's not, the sliders don't work any differently, don't give you a different look or anything. It's just, to me, they're placed a little bit better and they're a little bit easier to get to and work with. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We got a photo open here, and I can turn it, and I often do. When I'm really editing myself, I often do turn it to the horizontal side. And that way I just get a little bit more screen real estate for the photo. But just for purposes of our demo here, it's a little bit easier if you guys can see the names of everything down here. So let's start off with not all the way to the far left, but let's go to the crop tool close to the far left. And works just like every other crop tool you ever expected. So it's got lock, it's got straighten, you can rotate, you can flip. Click the little X to get out of it. Go next over to presets. If you've got any favorite presets that are built in here, you can get to them right here. They're not going to pull presets from your desktop though. Go over here. This is going to be one of the bigger sections, the light section. You've got your exposure. We've got our contrast. Go ahead and boost that up. And what you do is you just kind of scroll. You've got highlights or shadows. Pull the highlights back. Whites, blacks. If you want to, you can go over here and just kind of tap it. It goes back down, and then you can tap it and then come back up. Again, just if you want to go between all the settings, just scroll. All right. And that's going to be a little bit different. That's a little bit of a different workflow than what we had in the older version. You still have auto, and you still have your tone curve there if you want to use that as well. Next over from that, we got color. This is going to be your temperature and your tint, basically your white balance settings. And as you go down, you'll see that it's got vibrance and saturation as well. As you go back up here to the top, in the top right corner, if you tap on B and W, converts it over to black and white. Tap on it again, it goes back to color. And then that little color wheel that you see there, that gets you into hue, saturation, and luminance mode. So you can adjust any of the colors in HSL mode. Again, these settings are very similar to the desktop. That's why I'm kind of running through them. They're not anything different. Let's move on to effects. We got clarity. We got dehaze. All right. We've also got vignettes. Same sliders that we have in Lightroom on the desktop. So I can change the midpoint, maybe change the feather a little bit, darken the edges. Looks good. After I do that, I realize maybe I want to make it a little bit brighter overall. No problem. And then we go over here to optics. We can do some basic lens correction. In my experience, especially if it was a phone photo, it's not going to look a whole lot different. Over from that, we've got previous. So where previous would be useful is if I went to a different photo, then I tap on previous, I can apply everything from the previous photo or just the basic toning. So if I don't want to redo all those settings over and over again, I can just apply the previous. And then if we want to reset it back to its original, just tap on the reset. And you'll see here, you can reset the photo. Okay, let's go back to where we were. Take a look at the selective. Again, these aren't new settings. If I tap on selective, I can do the gradient. All right, just like the graduated filter. And then right now it's all clear. What I would do is go over to the light section for an example, and then bring the exposure down if I wanted to darken the sky. All right, you can get a good feel for what it's doing there. If I want out of it, I can hit the X at the bottom left. And if I want to commit this, I can go ahead and hit the checkbox in the bottom right. Tap on selective again. We'll go over here. This is the radial filter. So I can just tap and drag that out into any shape I want. Once I let go, now it's on the page or on the photo. I can move it around. Okay. If I want to change the shape of it, I can. If I want to rotate it, I'm just going to tap on that little thin line and rotate it around like so. Maybe I'll bring it up here into the corner. and then I'll go over into color, and I'll warm it up a little bit, like some sunlight is kind of shining through there. All right. And then again, if you want out, just hit the X. If you want to commit this change, just hit the little checkbox in the bottom right-hand corner. If you want to see a before and after, right up there to the top left next to the cloud icon is your before and after. So I just tap on that. That's my before. That's my after. So the experience is a little bit different. It's not necessarily any new sliders or anything like that. They're all tied back to Lightroom on the desktop, which is how all this really works, because if I go jump back over here to Lightroom on the desktop and I go and I find this photo, when I go into the develop module, what you should see are that all those settings are changed, right? If I go to the radial filter, there should indeed be a radial filter there. If there's not, sometimes you got to give it a little bit of time to catch up and sync up with itself. But as I go through these settings, whatever I did on the phone actually appears over here on the desktop, and vice versa. So if I go ahead and turn this into a black and white photo on the desktop, then eventually as the phone syncs back up, the phone version is going to be black and white as well. So your settings do go back and forth. Again, the names of the sliders, the way the sliders work, very, very similar. The experience in the new version is just a little bit different.